Forests are beautiful, and if you think so too, then photosynthesis might be just the right game for you. Photosynthesis is designed by Hildemar Haag and it plays from 2 to 4 players ages 8 and up. In photosynthesis, each player will take their part in helping a large forest grow. The forest is represented here in the center of the board. The trees that they get to work with come in 3 different sizes, and they start on their personal player board. We have small trees, medium trees, and large trees. We also have these little chips that represent seeds that can be planted in order to have new trees that grow. We also have the sun that is part of this game. That's represented by this big yellow cardboard cutout. And what's really interesting is here that the sun will move around the board after each round. After each round, in other words, after each player has taken one turn, the sun will actually move to the next corner of the board and give sunlight from a different direction. The game will be over once the sun has done 3 entire circles around the board, and we use these yellow chips here to keep track of that. Now, goal of the game is to make the most points, and you get points by cutting down any of your largest trees and getting a chip that represents the space they're currently standing on with points on it. And we'll talk about this in a second, how this works. Now, at the beginning of a round, each player will receive sun points based on the sun's position and their trees as they're receiving the sunlight. A small tree will get 1 sun point, a medium will get 2, and a large tree will get 3 sun points, based on the direction of the sun. So in other words, in my case, my tree here will get some sun, this one will get some sun as well. Now the interesting thing here, and that's kind of part of the core interesting strategy of this game, is that trees also cast shadow. Any tree that is behind another tree and that is not larger than the tree that is in front of it will not receive any sun points because the shadow is basically blocking it from receiving sun. Based on the size of the tree that is blocking you, that determines how long that shadow is that they're casting and how far behind it you will not receive any more sun points. A small tree has a shadow size of 1, so any tree right behind it will not get it. A medium tree has a shadow of 2, and a large tree has a shadow of 3. Only trees that are taller than the ones that cast the shadow will still receive points. Any trees behind it that are the same size or smaller will be blocked from the sunlight and not receive any points. So in our very specific example, if we take green as my playing color, this here is a medium tree, will receive 2 points. This tree here will also receive 2 points. It is blocked by another tree, but that one is smaller. Therefore, I can still bathe in the sunlight. The last one, on the other hand here, is blocking me because we're both the same size and it's exactly 1 distance away, so I will not receive any points for this one. So in this case, 2 points here, 2 points here, 0 points here, so I get a total of 4 sun points, and the other players do the same. Now, after every player has received their sun points, they can now use those points to take actions of different nature. Now, what's really interesting is each space on the board, or each tree that is already on the board, can only take 1 action. You can take as many actions as you wish in any order that you like, but each space on the board can only be used for 1 action. Now, the first thing that we can do as a choice for an action is we can get trees from our player board onto the available area. You have your trees on your board and you also have an available area here. The difference is that only trees in the available area can be used to do something with on the board. So in order to use them, I first have to buy them from myself. The cost of these trees are little numbers that are next to each tree. Taller trees are more expensive than smaller ones, and the bottom row of each player board is cheaper than the top one. When you buy a tree, you take it from the lowest available one on your player board, you add it to your available area, and you pay for it with your sun points. Alternatively, you can also choose to seed new trees. Seeds are these little chips here that look like this, and they are basically there to plant new trees that will hopefully grow into full-size trees eventually. A seed has to originate from a tree that is already on the board, and depending on its size, that's how far away this seed can travel. A small tree has a travel distance of 1 space, medium 2, and a large one of 3. What's interesting to note here, as I mentioned earlier, each space is only allowed to take 1 action. So if I, for example, would choose to, this one is a medium-sized tree, I choose to seed here because it's 2 spaces distance, that tree's action now has been used up because that is the core of the seed. To seed something cost me 1 light point, which I will happily pay. Alternatively to that, I can also choose to have any of my trees that are currently on the board grow into the next size. A seed goes into a small tree, small into medium, medium into large. That costs me, depending on the size of the tree. To grow a seed into a small tree cost me 1 point, small to medium cost me 2, medium to large cost me 3 points. So I have 1 light point left here, so I might just choose to take this seed here and change it into a small tree and pay my 1 light point for it. The seed itself gets returned to the player board, same with any trees that I would be taking off for growing them. If there is no space left on the player board, they get taken out of the game completely. And the last thing a player can do on their turn is they can take any of their fully grown trees, so the large one with 3 spaces, cut it down and exchange it into points. Depending where that tree was standing, let's say I don't have that right now, but let's just pretend I have a large tree here on this space here, and I'm cutting it down, which by the way cost me 4 light points to do. I now get to take the chip that represents that area, and that is my victory points that I'm trying to gather. So that's it. 4 things you can do. You can either buy trees from your supplier to your available area, you can plant a seed, you can grow a tree, or you can cut down trees for points. After every player has taken their turn, we start a new round, in which case the sun moves over 1 section in clockwise direction, the player token goes to the next player as the starting player, and now we start again. Everybody gathers their sun points. They will be different because the sun is now coming from a different direction. And that in itself is the core interesting concept of this game, is that trees block each other. The sun will coming from different areas all the time. So one time you might not get any points because somebody blocked you, but the next time you might block them because the sun is now coming from a different direction. It is an absolutely gorgeous game. It's relatively easy to learn, offers a lot of strategy, and it's absolutely beautiful to look at. The bright sun, the beautiful 3-dimensional tree models, and so on. So I really hope you're going to have a chance to check it out here across the board.